Knock, knock.
Who's there?
Queen Lisa.
Queen Lisa. Welcome to the show. Thanks for
Why,
being
thank you.
here. It's
Uh,
a pleasure. I love that you did that as your introduction. We just had a little pre-roll joke about that and your intake form, which was so I'm glad you said Queen Lisa. It's appropriate.
right? Right? It doesn't sound as good as like Queen Latifah, but I'm still trying to work it.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe you just change your name to Latifah and you'll be good to go.
I'll get back to you.
Perfect. All right. Well, listen, everyone tuning in, you get to be along for this comical conversation here. But as we like to do on the show, it's very loose, and we just have a chat. And we're going to have another chat today about really we're going to dial into self care. And I'm intrigued to hear a little bit. We've had a couple of amazing conversations. Myself and Lisa connected a few months back. We've done some podcasting, we've had some great conversations, and I just thought this would be another great conversation to put out there. Everyone tuning in, you're going to hear about self-care, and you're going to hear from a few different angles in this conversation today, but particularly for you busy parents that are tuning in today. And we know we have a lot of listeners that are in our, kind of our demographic and everyone we serve at the Nock Academy. So tune in, get your pen and paper, and get ready, because there's going to be some really impactful tips here. And based on the time of year, so we're tuning in, it's the beginning of January. This is going to be something where maybe it's just that time of year where there's some habit change and where you can really start to implement some things in your life. But we're going to talk a lot about today is how we do this and make it a permanent fixture in our life as well. So we're going to kind of tune that all in. But before we do that, I'm going to hand the microphone over to the Queen, Lisa, and she's going to tell everyone listening today about who she is, what she does, and where we can connect with you, where the listeners can connect with you. I love putting this at the beginning of shows because then everyone's got it front of mind, and it's not just thrown in at the end as an afterthought. So take it away. The mic is yours.
All right. Yes, thank you. I'm super happy to be here with you today. And I understand being a busy parent and how much work it takes to do all the things we want to do. And so I'm really happy to get to speak to this. I have been an esthetician for 25 years. I've been a leader in the beauty business, an educator and a mentor, and estheticians are queens of self-care. That's kind of where the queen came in. We teach people how to care for themselves. It's a very intimate role that I've gotten to play in the lives of so many beautiful people, where I'm helping, looking at their face closely and giving them ideas and lifestyle tips on what would help them get more water in, or what would help them radiate more through their skin, or clear their acne, or feel good, because there is the when we feel good, we look good. And so I have a ton of experience with a lot of what you do too, at helping people with lifestyle and habits. I did the classic COVID pivot and started podcasting. So I have the Sacred Beauty Lifestyle podcast, where I had the pleasure of interviewing you recently. I am an Amazon bestselling author. I also have my own skin line called Lisa Eddy Skin Food, as well as the Sacred Beauty Method. So I coach. Today, I coach female entrepreneurs and leaders and influencers to helping them de-age from the stressful lives they live so they can regain their confidence and become the magnetic face of their business.
Well, that was, and this is why I get everyone to do it, because when I read a bio, it never sounds that good. So I like everyone to come on and chat a little bit about themselves. Also, tell everyone where's the best place. People are going to be excited by just hearing that and may have questions, may want to connect, they may want to follow you. So where's the best place for everyone to follow you? And I will put it in the show notes too.
Yes, I would say Instagram, and it's my name. I am Lisa Eddy. And of course, in Instagram, I have the link tree. So there's all the links to all the other ways to find me. So that's a great place to start.
Yeah. Isn't that the best? Link trees are like the best thing ever. And if you don't know what a link tree is, then go Google it. I'm not going to explain.
Or go to my bio and click on the link, and then you'll be like, oh.
You'll see the Queen, Lisa the Queen's link tree, and you won't need to know anything else. So you'll be good to go. All right. So thank you for sharing a little bit. I love everyone to know who you are and what we're going to be diving into. As we all heard, you work in a field that is so tightly linked to what we do at the Nock Academy, because that it's not just your physical movement. Your nutrition is important. That's so important. You mentioned things about the skin and people's skin conditions, and how to the slowing down the aging process, or whatever we refer to it as, managing the aging process, should we call it.
Yeah.
And that's so important, but it's really important for the busy parents. And I say that because, and it's not to say no one else is busy, and I'm sure people are, but it comes hand in hand when you're a busy parent with not just the lack of self-care, but because you have this human being that you're responsible for, is we end up putting that human being first. Understandably so. I get it. I'm a parent. I got a 6-year-old daughter. She's my absolute world. However, we get into this loop, and we kind of touched on this, and I wanted to dive into it because it's so important, and we spoke about it before we started recording, is the loop of feeling crappy, feeling tired because you're prioritizing your kids and not yourself, and you're in that loop of get them in from school, get them fed, get them bath, get them in bed, tidy up after them. Then you miss out on sleep. Then you're up early in the morning with them. When we get in that loop, and I know this is something that you see so often with people, and those intimate conversations you get to have. So tell us a little bit about your experiences with this loop, with particularly those people that are similar to us, that are busy parents that are struggling with that. Is where do they end up from a health perspective that you experience?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the first things that comes to mind is a lot of parents just end up eating the food scraps off of their children's plate and don't even take the time for themselves. And I understand now, parenting is one of the hardest things we ever do. And I don't think the species would exist if we actually talked about how hard it is to parent.
Yep.
And the sacrifices that you do have to make. And I like that you brought in, sure, there's a time and a place where the children need to come first at different times and in different sectors of life. And yet it can't supersede your needs so much that you're coming from depletion all the time, right? And so if you're actually not making a point of sitting down with the children and eating with them and actually enjoying that meal, or if you're not getting your workouts in and stimulating and creating that energy and that detox, and that actually helps you sleep better, like all of the benefits we get from working out, right? If you're not prioritizing yourself in that way, you end up getting snappy. I mean, for those of you parents listening, you might be going, oh my God, I do that. Or like, yeah. And there's no judgment here. It's just let's evaluate and tune into what may be better options for us. Like, we know that it's not sustainable to constantly compromise yourself. And so one of the things I came up with as a busy mom, I wasn't a super early morning person, but I knew that if I did not get up and get my time alone, I need my time alone as an introvert. I present like an extrovert, but I'm actually an introvert. So I'm tricky like that. Because people think anyway. So I would need that time alone to fill up my own cup, to tap into source, universe, my higher self. So I needed that time to meditate, to journal, and a whole thing before I would do before work, pre like lockdown. It's all different now. And actually get my workouts in and do that also, that before my daughter wakes up, I already had that time. I was, nurturing myself. I stimulated my energy through working out and meditation. And I was like, okay, now I'm ready to take care of you. I was ahead of the game, because a lot of times we feel like we're like, things are just coming at us all the time. And it's like, how do I get in front of it? And so for me, I learned that getting up earlier was the answer. And so that's what I've taught a lot of my busy parents as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm on absolutely the same mindset. Like, I'm up. My family get up about 6:30 in the morning. My wife, because she has to. My daughter, because that's when she wakes up. And I'm up at 5. People say to me, oh, 5 o'clock. And I'm like, listen, without 5 a.m. to 6:30, I'm not a nice person to be around. It's not fun when I do it, but I'm not nice, and I'm also not the best version of myself unless I do it. So although it's a struggle and it's tough, I realize there's a payoff there. However, what I will say to that is, we're on the same page, but anyone listening is thinking, oh, there's no way I'm getting up and working out at 5 a.m. and I'm not doing. you know what? It's not that you have to do what we do or what anyone else that, you know, is similar to us does, but think about what you could do. Maybe you love to start your day with a cup of coffee and you want to do that in peace. So why not set the coffee up on a, you know, the coffee machine on a timer and just get up 15 minutes early. So in that 15 minutes, you don't check your phone, you don't, you know, run around after anyone else, or you do it before you know other people wake up. And maybe that's what you do. You just enjoy 15 minutes of quiet, like you said, alone time, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be, you don't need to be going for a 10K run. You just need to be assigning that time to you, whatever that looks like. Often for me, that time is actually time when I get up and I work. Sometimes I work out, but often I'll get up and work because an hour and a half, no emails, no texts, no one bothers me. The dog doesn't even care. Like she stays in her bed for another hour after I get up. So I just sit and I work. And the work I get done gives me so much space in the rest of my day. So it can be any form of self care. Is it like me? I'm doing work. So then I know I've got time to pick my daughter up from school and spend 2 hours with her. Or is it a workout so you can be your best self when you're, you know, your family are awake? Whatever that looks like, it's just finding that space. And I agree that that time of the day is, I've never found a better day, and I've never found a client who's found a better time of the day to do it. So important.
It's precious because, like you said, we don't have all these other things coming at us. The city is still sleeping, if you will, like energetically. You don't feel everyone's energy bouncing around yet.
If you've got an energetic child, you'll know exactly what we're talking about right now, because they often, you know, as my wife says, I say, oh, guess how I got woke up today? She said, Harley brought a rock in and put it in the bed for me. And she's like, that's how I got woken up. But it's true, right? Like that can really set your day, and how you know, life's how we react to it. So how you react to that, you know, if she comes down the stairs with a rock, I'm like, whatever, I don't care. But getting it like lobbed at you in the bed, it's not ideal. So it's definitely a difficult, so it's simple, but it's not easy. It's simple to understand it, but doing it's so tough.
It's like all the great teachings, philosophies, or spiritual practices. They're simple, but the hard part is that you actually have to do it. But the hard way gets easier, and the easier way gets harder. You know, with whether it's like the parenting, like if you're letting your child, you know, get away with something because it felt easier, and then you have the repercussions of that, or whether you're not taking care of yourself and you're slipping and it seems easier to reach for a quick fix. That's where we all go wrong often from time to time, is that we want to feel a certain way. Like every habit is serving a sacred need. So we're reaching for something, and sometimes we're coming home from a tired, you know, or busy day, long day at work, and we're tired, and you might actually just need to take a bath, or, you know, whatever it is that gives you that really relaxing, feel good, you know, de-stressing little quality time. But it often can be reaching for a beer or a glass of wine because it represents that, but it doesn't have that sustainable feel good effect that you get from actually making a really conscious choice.
Yeah. Wow. And busy parents out there, we all do this. Like, think about how hard it is when you, I don't know, allow more screen time than you think is appropriate, because it's sometimes it's a really good babysitter, but you pay the price for that later so bad, because then you've got to get them to stop. Then it's next time you need to do something, they're like, well, I'll just watch the TV, or I'll just play on my tablet because you're doing XYZ. And you're like, no, that was just one time we did that. So much harder. I heard a very, very intelligent person that I love to listen to, Dr. Lane Norton, and he was on a podcast that I listened to recently, the Huberman Lab, and he said exactly that. Like, if you do the easy thing now, it will make your life harder. If you do the hard thing now, it will make your life easier. And he was relating this. He talks a lot about nutrition,
Mm.
and he was basically saying that from nutrition, right? You know, that's the somebody, and he was talking about somebody that had lost like 300 pounds. It was like he could just keep doing the easy thing, but it was making his life harder because he was gaining weight, and then he couldn't move, and then he couldn't get out of a chair. And he was like, to do the hard thing was to get up at 5 a.m. and go to the gym when I was 400, 500 pounds and walk on the treadmill. But it was the hard thing. But now I'm at 200 pounds and my life's better and it's easier. So it relates across so many things.
Right on.
Mhm. Very, very powerful. So
Yeah.
tell me, I know that when I see someone come to me from a fitness and a nutrition standpoint, because that's the field I'm in, I can see the telltale signs, and I can see how what they're doing with their habits right now is affecting them from that side, like their physical health, their mental health, their nutritional health. What does that look like in your world when someone comes with to you for coaching, for support, for you know care, whatever that looks like? What do you see? What are the telltale signs? What are you expecting to hear when they start telling you about, and do you already kind of have an idea of the angle you're going to take? Because this is something that really interests me in other fields.
Okay, yeah, that's a really good question. So let me see if I can kind of dissect that. So I call myself a soul and skin mentor, and I'm really also a confidence and empowerment coach. As I was saying, I've sort of really work with female entrepreneurs these days, and a lot of what anyone, whether you're a female entrepreneur or a tired parent, a lot of what we experience that doesn't feel good is not liking the way that we look. And that can sometimes be motivation. Like, I don't like the way I'm looking. I don't like the way I'm feeling. I'm exhausted. So for some people, it's, I'm noticing the results of my skin, like my skin sagging, or I don't want to get on videos and make the videos I need to make for my business. They're hiding because they don't have that confidence behind them. And so I have to delve in and ask some of these questions like, okay, so what is your goal? And it's like, oh, well, to have radiant skin and energy and to feel good and to, embrace all of these habits and, blah, 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 to do all these things perfectly, of course. Right. And, then it's like, what's in the way? And a lot of times it's like, well, I'm tired at night. I don't wash my face. I don't, I go to bed with my makeup on. I have wine right before I go to bed, or, I'm not getting the water in, all of these things. So I talk to people about nutrition and working out and taking care of their skin and their spiritual practices, right? It's the physical, mental, spiritual, emotional. It's all the things that make a difference. And so kind of dissecting uh, what it is per case, but a lot of it really boils down to not knowing what to do, not being consistent, and then not feeling good about the way they look as a result of it.
Yeah. So eloquently put. And I like that, you may have caught on to that. Anyone listening, you're like, well, that's what you were trying to get her to say. But my point was that I was looking at it from the way I see it, and maybe people don't see some of those things like radiant skin having anything to do with their workout. But I'm like, it's the same thing. It's your health, right? And it's so important, and people don't necessarily join the dots. And I love what you said. It's about that coaching question, or it's about that. Let me delve a little bit deeper. So you do the same things in your world as I do in my world. It's such a tight crossover, and I think people maybe don't see that connection.
Yeah, that's why I actually love what you do so much. I have such a passion for nutrition. So backing up, as a very young girl, I had I grew up with parents that were not healthy. My mother is obese and has so many health issues to this day. When you were talking about that gentleman earlier, I was thinking, God, I wish my mother would take care of herself or could. Now she's in so much pain because she didn't take care of herself. So I had these parents who were total extreme opposites of how I chose to live and eat and be and do. I grew up dancing, so I was always in my body. Movement was always a huge part of my life. And then so I've always kind of been into self-care, and then getting into, skincare as a profession. I was able to sorry, my mind, there's so many things I want to share, all of these connections. I started to see as I was working with people what was going on, and I could read their skin when people come in and they're complaining about the way that they look, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this person is completely dehydrated. I started to get to read the skin, or they're completely devitalized. They're not getting the nutrients. And there's a level of the integrity of the skin and an inner glow that radiates out when it is like when your cells are really healthy, when your cells are really hydrated, when there's a vibrancy. And there's also a vibrancy when you're letting source run through you and your spiritual practice is high too. But I first started noticing the lack of nutrition. And so I really started diving in, learning all I could, taking all the classes about nutrition I could get my hands on at the time. Ended up marrying a natural doctor and running his practice years later, which seems like another lifetime now because that's now my husband. But that was all great experience as well. And so then as I started mastering and seeing and teaching people the impact, because we didn't learn that in school, the impact. Again, I studied in skin 25 years ago. So we weren't making the correlation that we are today. The beauty is that we're really learning a ton about the body and how it operates and our cells and our genes and all these great things we're learning today. And the responsibility, or really the impact, the control that we do have by making the right choices. So then when I started implementing coaching around nutrition, and then I started looking, and I could tell when people were really sad, or really emotional or really missing something, and I would be doing energy healing work on people. I started studying Reiki and different means of doing hands-on healing and coaching and helping them feel connected to themselves. That's a huge part of it too. A lot of us don't even realize that sometimes we don't feel good because we're missing connection. And a lot of times it's not a connection with outside. We can connect better outside of us when we can connect better inside.
I'm like blown away by that. So many. I recommend everybody just skips back like 30 seconds and listens to that again, because someone's inability to connect with the outside is internal work. And so many of us need to hear that. So many of us need to hear that. If there is a disconnect, whatever you call that, in whatever you believe, if there's a disconnect between you and a person, a thing, a place, like whatever it is, it's in here. Like if you want to get connected to yourself and you want to get things around you, it's energy. Like you said, you draw, and I've learned this so much in the last few years, particularly, is you draw the type of people that you are asking for indirectly, right?
You do. And sometimes it sneaks up on you because it's like something that is actually going to be a beautiful, painful lesson for you, because that is sometimes how they come. And that's an energy thing too. We are communicating with each other before we're communicating with each other, before it all lines up in the physical world. But I learned a lot of this the hard way. As we're sitting here talking about it, I'm realizing, I being a woman, we are so judged by the way we look. And being an attractive woman, I was condemned for that. I was kicked out of the girls' club at like age 12 because I got boobs early and the boys liked me apparently. And I was just devastated that all of my friends stopped talking to me. So we get so many mixed messages, like you're supposed to look good and you're supposed to be strong. And then when you do, you're too pretty or too strong, or there's so much pressure that I had all of these imprints from people all over and all around me. And even my father, the mixed messages I got from him, like, you're a pretty girl, you'll find a good man to take care of you. Like I wasn't supposed to be smart. Which was so not my MO. So I went through the ringer by listening to all these people and having all these different imprints on me that weren't really who I am. So that I lost the trust in myself because I was listening to other people because they were telling me how I should be at a young age, that I lost that connection. So then I was constantly like looking for the approval on the outside. And I went to a phase where I worked out too hard and it was like extreme. And I had to do, 5 days a week and it had to be that. Right? And then, I went through some hell, and then I went to Peru. And I'm just remembering this as you were talking. I went to Peru as always, seeking more information and spiritual teachings. And one of the gentlemen in my life who became an incredible mentor, I met in a beautiful way through his son in Peru. And he's an Incan elder. He's come out to San Francisco and we've taught together since then, and he still mentors me. But one of the things that he could not stress enough, and this was back in 2016. So what is that, 6 years ago now? I was meditating, but not to the level that I committed to after this trip. So prior to, I dabbled. I don't know if any of you listeners are like, but I can't meditate. It's too hard. I can't clear my mind. I think we're often taught a lot of misinformation about meditation too. One way of meditating is clearing your mind. It's not, I think, the most productive way. It certainly isn't the easiest way. There are lots of other ways. So if that hasn't worked for you, don't worry. You don't have to clear your mind. So Willaroo, my teacher, shared with me that one of the best things we can do is get people to go inside. We have a mother, father, God inside of us. We have a doctor inside of us. We have, everything inside that we need if we just stop and listen and tap in and take that time out. That's why it became so valuable to just carve out that time in the morning that couldn't be interrupted because nobody else was up. Like you said, my daughter wasn't getting up at 5.
I love what you said about the meditation. It's about finding what works for you, and this goes across everything that the world of your wellness, your well-being, whatever you call it. It's the same as people say to me, well, I tried working out. Now they'll come to me and say, I want to be in less pain, or I want to feel better, or I want to lose weight, or I want to get strong, but I worked out and it just didn't work out for me. Like, okay, well, what did you do? Well, I tried this. Right. So you tried one way of working out. I'm like, go Google how to get in shape and you'll see billion hits on ways to get in shape. There's so many ways. What you haven't done is been able to explore that. Meditation's the same. Nutrition's the same. Oh, I'm trying to lose some weight, or I'm trying to build some muscle, or I'm trying to, improve my energy levels, but I went on this diet, it didn't work. Okay, so let's try something else. And you have to be able to explore the different options out there in everything.
I love that you are doing the parallel between nutrition or meditation, all of it, meditation, working out, because it is about building a muscle. So you're right. You won't be good at it at first. Nobody is.
Yeah.
Right? You have to be patient, and that can be hard for a lot of us because we are in an era, and many of us have grown up like this, where we have the quick fix and we have instant gratification. And so we've kind of lost patience as a society.
Are you trying to say that society are not super good at being patient? Shocker.
I mean, it's a possibility.
Yes, we are not very good at that. Hey, I've been terribly unhealthy, out of shape, lacking energy, and not sleeping for like 10 years. Can we fix that in the next 2 weeks? Um, hello, no, it's taken you 10 years to get here. It's not going to be fixed in 2 weeks. Like, you've got to be patient with that, and trust the process. As cliche as that sounds, I talk about that all the time with my clients, and the journey that we go on in everything. And I'm sure skincare is no different.
You see me reacting in all kinds of ways right now. If you're on video, I'm like, oh my God, stop it. Yes, they want it yesterday. And I'm like, you know how long it took your skin to get like that? Like, there is a whole reversal, rebuilding like process that needs to happen here. And unfortunately, what people do, because there's so much misinformation in this era of information, what so many people do is then they Google the newest thing and then they switch and they don't quite do what they tell you, but they didn't tell that they didn't quite do what they told you. And then I realized later that, oh, people lie to you. It took me a while to realize they weren't telling the truth.
Yeah.
And I understand there's no judgment here on that. It just makes it a little hard when we're trying to like work with you and help you here. We really need the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But they jump around, and we've all been guilty of that. And it's really important that we actually stick with something and stop trying all the latest fads, whether it's the workout or the different diets, or the skincare, because anything can work for a period of time. And then we start seeing what's really going on with your diet when you're eating like that. Like some of these high fat diets, for example, they're not for everybody. That someone who has a compromised gallbladder, for example, and can't process all of that fat might have a hell of a time. But initially, when we change something, you're kickstarting your body, you're using different muscles, like for a workout. It's the same thing kind of inside. You're using different, I'm at a loss for words right now, Gareth. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's stimulating different processes to break down the food that it actually gets a kickstart that you didn't have for a while. So you might look like up front, oh, I'm getting results, things are better, same with skin, but you could actually be doing harm and it doesn't show up right away.
Yeah, well, and that I think that talks to and I'm sure this comes up for you as well, is sometimes it starts small. And I wonder whether you have the conversation that I frequently have, which is, well, that doesn't seem like very much. Is that going to work? When I say, can you just like maybe the first thing we should do is try and increase your protein intake in your meals. Just as an example, I'm not saying this is for everyone, just giving an example. It's very simple. And I want you to
Yes.
do is try and up like 10 grams per meal. Let's get you in a place. Or let's try and take all distractions away from mealtime. Or let's try taking a walk for 5 minutes, depending on the environment. And people say, well, it doesn't seem like very much. That's easy. I can do that. That's the idea. I want you to be able to do it. I don't want you to go on this like crash diet where you're going to say to me, well, I didn't work out 3 times a day and track all my calories. Exactly. And I knew you weren't going to be able to do that. So I gave you something that you could do. And I'm sure this happens
Oh my
all the
God.
time with people you see as well.
You're seriously cracking me up. So I have a friend, a dear friend. I love him dearly. And he has some stuff going on. He has eczema, which is really an internal condition, typically an allergy, often to milk or something that we're reacting to that comes out our skin. That's why, for those of you who are listening who are wondering the correlation between skin and nutrition and how I started to see things, our skin, I did not share this earlier, many of you know, but this might be pulling it together for you. Our skin is the largest organ of the body, right? And it is a purging organ by design. So I always say, whatever is not coming out, your pee, your poo, or your sweat is coming out your skin. So it really speaks to us in the form of rashes, in the form of acne, in the form of different irritations, dry patches, right? And so a lot of that is actually internal. That's why I started getting really interested in nutrition. So back to the friend. He has these different things going on. So his body's compromised. He has an autoimmune, right? He was just traveling. You texted me like, oh my God, I slept 3 hours last night, right? He's driving 9 or 10 hours a day. He's taking care of this older woman because he's an amazing human, but he's doing it at the cost of himself. That's a side note. We should only do that for kids on occasion and people on occasion, not all the time. So, anyhow, so he is doing all these things, not sleeping, not drinking enough water, eating out because he's on the road. So he's eating fried food because I know that's one of his weaknesses. And then he tells me, "Oh, well, I'm going to do a fast." And I'm going, "Oh my God, please don't." But please don't. So I asked permission. I was like, "Can I share something with you?" And he's like, "Sure." But I could tell he wasn't super receptive. And I said, it sounds to me like if you were to go for a fast right now, it would be like doing a marathon without training. Like typically going into a fast, we want to start cutting back on the fried food and increasing our water and normalizing and easing our organs already a little bit, because what people don't realize when we're fasting, it's a stress on the body as well. Like there are good stresses. Working out is a good stress to some degree. We have to stress our bodies, but like not stepping on all the landmines at once. So for any of you listening, if you're hearing what we're just saying here, is like, maybe it's just some simple changes. Maybe you stop eating at 7 o'clock at night instead of doing a fast and give your body that time, or stop eating even by 9 is great, because the second level of digestion comes around in the Ayurvedic tradition. They would say, 9 p.m. is the second, or we should stop eating at 9 because the second level of digestion comes in at that time. I'm totally tongue twisted and I just really jacked that up, but are you getting the point? Because it comes back and does a sweep and digest all the food that have been left behind, is my point. But if we are eating again right before bed or too close to bed, too late at night, then when we lie down and go to sleep, our body is now working the food that we've just added instead of being able to do that sweep.
Mm,
So be a little bit more gentle
yeah,
if you
be
can.
gentle and some two things I think are missing: self compassion. for a lot of people when they're looking at changing habits.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I actually spoke about this earlier today when I was recording as well, and I talk about it a lot on the show, but is celebrating things. And I kind of joked that, my clients like, well, that seems a bit easy. And I'm like, all right, like the eye roll, because I'm like, yes, it does seem a bit easy. And there's a reason for that, because we're going to do it and then we're going to celebrate it. And people don't see that. They think they're going to get, oh, I'm going to get the most amazing thing planned and work out and do all these things, and I'm going to go hard at it, and it's going to be all or nothing. And I'm like, no, what you're going to do is you're going to learn to celebrate. You're going to learn to be consistent through celebrating. We're driven by dopamine. We're driven by that instant, right? The gratification thing. So I want you to be able to do 3 days of a nutrition plan and celebrate, because we're driven by that. And then we go, wow, I feel great. Or wow, that really helped me get to sleep at night. Or like something little, right? Or wow, I was able to drink, extra water today. Great, celebrate that, celebrate that, celebrate that. And when we do that with any self-care, it's that little step, right? Somebody comes in, like you said, and says, my skin's terrible. And you're like, this person drinks, 1 glass of water a week, and they wonder why their skin's terrible. It just, let's try for 1 glass when you wake up in the morning. Let's see if that makes a difference. And we just those, whatever it is, whatever care you're looking at, has to be those little tiny steps and constantly celebrating all the time.
I think celebration is so important, and it took me a while to get that down myself. A lot of us we're looking for the next thing, like, okay, and we forget to stop. And it really does anchor in what you're doing. That's a really great teaching, Gareth.
And you know what's funny is, I'll share a story, because this is people will listen to this, and people that know me well and listen to the show. So any of you out there that are listening right now are laughing, because you're like, you're a hypocrite, and I am a hypocrite. I totally am on many things. However, we're not perfect. We don't become coaches and people that help others with their self-care, let's say that, in the realm of health and well-being. We don't become these people because we're perfect and we get it right. I'm awful at celebrating. I'm always there. Well, I could have done another few reps in my workout, or I could probably get a little bit better today. But it's a funny story. As my business coach was like, "That's what you need to start doing. You need to start celebrating." She's like, "Here's all these things you do. Here's all the amazing things in the business, and blah 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 blah, and all these great results and all the things you do. When was the last time you like shouted out from the rooftops?" I'm like, "No, no, no. I'm not doing that. I haven't got time for that. I got goals to set and reach." And she's like, "You need to slow the down, and you need to celebrate." And I made this very, very awkward post, and I put a picture up of us out for a meal as a family, and it was celebrating, the business and a great year. And it was, I was like, I had my phone and I was like having a panic attack. I'm like, I really don't want to do it. And it just showed to me that it was more about, it was about me not being able to celebrate, but a lot of it was driven in what other people thought. So if you're listening and you're thinking, well, how do I celebrate? I don't want to do that publicly, etc., because I'm worried about what people think, then know that people don't really care. And you know what? It was one of those things where I got a reminder for it, like, this was your most engaged with post. And I'm like, oh, actually, people don't think I'm an idiot. Actually, people were like, wow, this is so good to see. You're celebrating yourself. So it just goes to show that people are, for the most part, some people aren't, but that's another conversation. Most people are on your side and want to see you win.
Yes.
So
Yes. And I have a quote for you, because I too had to learn how to celebrate myself through my business achievements from my coach. So you got to celebrate to elevate,
yeah, so stealing that. Thanks. I'll
right?
put that
You're
on a
welcome.
I'll put that on a social media tile. Don't tell anyone.
Ty
Apart from
Queen Lisa on
Queen,
it.
I'll quote you. I promise.
I still got to
Um,
work on that name. Okay, go ahead.
that's okay. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. Um, I want to go back to something that I think is really important, because
Mhm.
I talk about this a lot in nutrition coaching, and I talk about why we eat certain things and how the organs of our body are important, and the jobs they do. We talked about the fasting thing, and not fasting so much, because there are some proven benefits in there with that. But the other one that gets me a lot is like cleansing. So I'm just giving an example now of an organ where people are like, I want to go on a cleanse. I'm like, why? And they're like, well, they explain to me. I'm like, but you have organs that do that for you. They're very important. And as long as they're working and you've not got a medical, diagnosis that they're not, you don't need to cleanse your body, because it's doing its job. However, there's how you can support that process. So it's less about trying to take the job away. It's about trying to support that job, right? So we want to take the job away from our organs but we don't want to do the work to support the organs. And where I'm going with this in a very long-winded way is the skin is our biggest organ.
Yeah.
So to my point of wanting to take the job away from your liver and your kidneys and cleanse,
Yeah.
is the skin similar? Do you see this a lot? People wanting to do things that kind of bypass the job of the skin to get a result.
Yeah. I mean, even in the way that people will go for injections or even an eye lift or what have you, or different surgeries in lieu of having to be consistent 100%. I'm in holistic skincare because I really care about the whole body and longevity and all of that jazz. So it's not my realm, but I see that some people are just not interested. I've never had anything done and I don't really intend to. I'm 50. I really think we have a lot more control, but we've sort of been trained into, again, that quick fix of like, I'm just going to get from A to Z and get the benefit. And yeah,
Yeah. Let the skin do its job and just support it in the process. So
right. Because we're missing out a little bit. So if we're not really nourishing our skin by cleansing it really well and taking off all the gunk and pollution that is sitting on your skin and breaking it down, not to mention for women, often makeup or what have you, right? We're compromising the integrity of the skin. And then, we're not perhaps moisturizing it regularly, which it needs. It's not just about even the hydration. It's like a protection when we're putting on our moisturizer as well, right? So there are ways that we're caring for ourselves physically that do protect and preserve that and improve the integrity, that when you do a quick fix, you don't see that. You don't get that glow. You can't achieve that through a quick fix, period.
yeah, yeah. Well, and that's we can relate that back to working out and nutrition. Um, you mentioned something that I talk about a lot too. I do a whole section in my nutrition. We have a 12-week program that we run, and in one of those, hydration is one of the weeks, one of the topics. And people are always like, "Well, why is that? Why is it so important? Why is water so important?" I'm like, "Your body's 70% water. Your skin is the biggest organ." So, talk to me a little bit about, because I know there's people listening, and I get this every single time. There's not a client ever comes to me and says, I drink enough water. So tell us a little bit about how, everything with the body, but particularly the skin and, and everything else it affects, and why it's so important to be hydrated. And also some tips on how to, maybe some non-typical tips on how to improve hydration.
Mhm. Okay. So I often relate it to a car. We wouldn't drive our car on low oil or gas or run it without water because it would break down. But your body is so freaking brilliant that it will push through, but there is a cost, right? Our body's like a credit card. Like we end up we got to pay those charges on it someday, right? So uh I just got lost there.
That's okay. So the credit card bit through, maybe the credit card bit through you, it threw me. I
Yeah.
was like, oh yeah, interesting.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so kind of the benefits of, or why we need to be so well hydrated, how that affects the skin, and also how we can do it. How do we go about those kind of non-typical, rather than just drinking a glass of water? What would be some other things that we could do to help improve hydration?
Right. So your skin uh being a purging organ, if you don't have enough water in, that's when the gunk is going to come out your skin. So when you are drinking enough water, you're actually helping your lymphatic drainage system. So it's wellness. It's not just beauty. Like you're actually improving the function of all of your organs. When you're dehydrated internally, everything is working harder. That's why I relate it to a car too, because you can imagine all the wheels and belts and things like that's kind of what happens to your body. Your digestion abilities decrease when you're dehydrated. So all of that shows up in your skin. So if that is not motivation to drink more water, I don't know what is. But here is one for men or women, but this might be a motivation for men, maybe more so, is that the body will take water from muscle first. That is the first place it will grab stored water. And you do not want to deplete your muscles, right? So there's that. So if that's not inspiration, okay. Now, how do we get the water in? Like, okay, we're talking about it, and not all water is created equal. And that might be a whole other topic because I'm super picky about the water I take. There's so much crap and toxins and chlorine in our water and fluoride is actually worse for us than lead. It's been proven. Anyhow, there's so much in our water. So drinking really clean water makes a difference. And the reason why I bring that up is because we don't receive the toxic dead water as well as our body receives what I would call living water. If you imagine water running over rapids, it's getting a workout. Like that water actually has a smaller molecular structure. I realized this when I'd be working with people who were telling me that they were drinking water, and I'm looking at them and I'm like, you are not receiving it. And then I started getting more curious. Are you peeing all the time? Yeah. Okay, this person's not receiving the water. And then I realized it was bottled water or tap water. It was really low grade water. So there is some serious wisdom there, just FYI, to look at. If you're listening and you're like, oh my God, I pee way too much. It's like unrealistic how much I pee, and I do feel dehydrated. That could be why. Okay. Now, ways to get water in. Sometimes what I'll do, and now working at home, I know a lot of us are working at home. In the morning, I have two 20-ounce bottles that I'll fill because I know that my water intake per day, and I'll share with you how to figure out yours if you don't already know it, is 80 ounces. So I have these two bottles that I fill up so they're on the counter. So that every time I'm going into the kitchen, I'm pouring from those, I'm chugging from those. And then as soon as those two are done, I wait so I don't forget. If I don't just fill one when it's empty because I'm like, oh shit, how much water did I get in? Let those two empty out. And then I fill them both up again and finish them so that I know I got my water in. And if you're on the road too, you can pack a bunch of water bottles with you, but make sure that you know what you need individually. So here's a great sort of gauge. If you take your body weight and you divide it by 2, that is the number of ounces that you need per day. That's your baseline waking, what your body needs to function rate. And then for every cup of caffeine or alcohol, you'd counterbalance cup for cup. So if you know that you are somebody who drinks 2 cups of coffee a day, let's say, and you weigh 160 pounds. So 160 pounds divided by 2 is 80, but now you've just had 2 cups of coffee. So now you have to add in 16 ounces. So now your baseline is 96. And then if you're like, I have a glass of wine once a week. Okay. So then when you have the wine or the cocktail or whatever it is, just counterbalance in that moment. Have a glass of wine, have a glass of water so that you're counterbalancing that. Really knowing what you need is essential to staying hydrated.
Yep. Yeah, I like that. I like having the tips, having the, something nearby that reminds you how many, filling up a bottle, whatever that looks like. And I will also say about that, like anything, I talk about this with nutrition quite a lot, is you will, like anything, you will learn what that looks like and what that feels like. So people ask that all the time. They're like, well, how often do you track your calories? How often do you track, your workouts? How often do you track your water intake? I'm like, sometimes I do as a recap, but after 25 years of doing it, I don't have to necessarily, because I can look at my food and say, I kind of know how much it is. I can tell you roughly how much water I've drunk in a day based on when I drink, how I drink, where I'm going to offset that with caffeine, etc. But that's a skill. Like it's been 20, 25 years of doing it, like anything, right? Like people are like, how do you track your workouts? I'm like, well, a lot of the time I do actually remember, and I can kind of keep a lot of it. I write some stuff down because it's important to track stuff, but yeah, I don't have to do it all the time. And it's just like anything, right? You learn that skill. It's the same as people when they track calories and they get overwhelmed. I'm like, you don't have to do it. Number one, there are many ways, but number two is you're learning a skill, and then you'll start to see what that feels like, and then you're going to start to see what that looks like, and then you're going to say, all right, I got this. I can come back to it and use it as a kind of checkpoint. And
Yeah.
hydration can be much the same.
100%. And it's
Mhm.
just it's a lifestyle. It's yes, we get used to it. We start to learn. Yes.
Mm.
It becomes our norm.
Yeah. So I'm intrigued. So I use I use a water filter. We have a water filter in our house.
Mhm.
Is that is that something you see as a really is that a good route to go? Are there better routes? Is there, what's the way to get, like, is that going to filter out a lot of the stuff from our water? What's the kind of best choice when we're looking for good quality water?
Yeah, that's a great question. They're not all created equal, and I've used different ones over the year, and I feel like they keep evolving as well. So the different ones keep popping up where not long ago, a few years back, I had gotten a Berkey maybe 4 or so odd years ago. Do you know what the Berkey water filter is?
No.
I have this beautiful canister that sits on my counter, and you have these filters inside, but you have to prime them. Like, the way that you have to prime them is a little bit of work, and the ones that took out the chlorine were separate. And then I found out about a new company that sort of evolved off of this, and they had water filters where I only needed two that actually also took out the chlorine. And so I now use that, and I have the link in my link tree as to the water one that the water filtration system that I recommend at this point, which is Pro One. And you can even look on the website and look at different chemicals that are scanned out. And if you look at your local water and you actually do some diving into what is in the local water, you'll see, wow, there are a lot of contaminations in the water here. So I do recommend, and again, I don't want to overwhelm you if you're listening and you're just like, I'm just trying to drink my water. Like, doing the best you can to start is also good.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. You start somewhere, right? Like, it's like,
Mhm.
there's an optimal version of everything, and then there's a
Mhm.
realistic version. So maybe there's many brands that I'm sure people will recognize.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a good place to start at one step of filtration, right? Like, I know a lot of them are just a
Yeah.
standard kind of carbon filter.
Mhm.
I'm sure the first version that you can buy at the grocery store is not going to be as good as the high end version, the same as anything, right?
Right. Right.
But is it, somewhere we can start? So start thinking about the quality of the water, and just, making a little bit of an impact. And then, like we do, right? And we said, we start with a little bit of walking, to get moving, and then, maybe we layer in some strength training, because that's going to be a bit more optimal for our longevity and being pain free, and we just build. So, consider the amount you're drinking, consider the quality of that. And it was interesting to hear that, the way we receive the water and the way we absorb that water is, varies on the quality, because I think people maybe miss that too. So really, really impactful information. um
Yeah.
uh, I want to just hand the mic back over to you, for any final thoughts. We're going to kind of start wrapping up. We're about at time here. It's been an incredible conversation, but I'd love for you, if there's anything kind of sitting there you think, I'd love to share this little thing, or I didn't get time to say that, or any last words of wisdom for the listeners, and for me.
Yes, yes, for all of us. I know, I appreciate you asking. I think that as a busy parent, especially when your children are really young, and maybe I'm speaking to moms here primarily, as a mom myself, we often I often hear women say that they can't take the time to wash their face, that, like, I can't take those 5 minutes to myself, like, you don't understand. Or in the evening, if falling asleep on the bed when you put your kid down and you're falling asleep and then you're too tired to go wash your face, and that's why you're not doing your regimen. So, if I may offer a suggestion here for you, that instead of doing that when you're going to be risking falling asleep, or when you're too tired, and even if you're just it's watching TV that you're falling asleep, and your kids are a little bit older now, that it's not as detrimental there. But the point is like carving out time where you wrap it around another habit. So maybe right when you get up from the dinner table, before there's a lot of demands with the children at bedtime, like, what if you just snuck away then and washed your face? Or even backing up sooner, what if you just did it when you got home from work? If you're working outside of the home and you come home and you get in your comfy cozies, what if that is the time that you did your skin regimen then, and you use that as a transitional moment for you? Like, okay, I'm moving into taking care of others and I'm going to take this moment for myself. And you kind of imagine as you're washing your face, like washing all the gunk off from your day, watching it go down the drain, like letting it be a sort of a spiritual caretaking ritual where you breathe in, feel yourself touching your skin and nurturing yourself. So that you had that moment of caretaking. So you're filling up your cup a little and you get the benefit of looking good because when you do this on the regular basis, of course, with the right stuff, that's another conversation. But when you're doing this on a regular basis, you're spending time washing your face, you're stimulating your lymphatic system, you're toning the skin, including also getting off all of that gunk. Your skin should look better in the morning. And there is a loop. I call it the sacred beauty upper loop and the lower loop when working with my clients is that when you feel good, you look good, you look good, you feel good. When you're doing these things, you're fostering more motivation to do more good things,
Mhm.
right?
I love it. Powerful,
Yeah.
and insert skin with many other things, and insert washing your face and cleansing it with many other things. It stands across so many different topics. You're just taking time, you're being mindful of your schedule to make sure you get that done. And that can be your workouts, your nutrition, your skincare, anything that, as you said, helps you feel good, and then that's going to help you look good, and vice versa. It all comes together. So really powerful. I want to end the show by just thanking you, firstly, for your time, Lisa. This has been another incredible conversation. I love that you shared earlier that you are the introverted extrovert, and I think that's why we get on so well and could talk forever because I'm very similar, much to people's shock. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for tuning in for another episode. We hope your 2023 is off to a flying start. Please reach out if you have questions. You can find our details in the show notes. You can also find Lisa's details as well. So you can connect if you've got questions on skincare, self-care, nutrition, fitness, whatever that might be. We're here and we're open, and we just want to help as many people out there as possible. So thank you, Lisa. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, everybody. And we will catch you on next week's show.